The majority of professional Overwatch nowadays is played on the live current patch because people are playing from around the world in what is effectively open qualifiers. So basically, everything that is going on is up to date current with what the game is doing at the moment. This, however, was not always the case, because during the days of Overwatch League, when the game ran on its own separate client that the public was actually never allowed to see, it could be on patches that were a little behind to give teams a while to adjust to the changes and everything like that to kind of keep up the competitive integrity. However, what ended up happening a lot in OWL was that there would be one basically pretty defined meta for the majority of the season, and then right at the end, there would be a patch. A pretty big patch. And then that would be the single patch that they played the entirety of playoffs on. And in 2020 was probably the most infamous example, because Roadhog got buffed. In fact, his shotgun got a significant damage increase. Every pellet now does 7 instead of 6. This was insanely good for Roadhog. Yes, he got a couple of nerfs to compensate, but these did not matter. Roadhog was a huge threat. He was extremely good versus shields. He was extremely consistent with his one shot, especially against the cast that had majority 200 HP. It was a nightmare. He got into tanks, he got into DPS, he got into supports. He could basically do everything by himself. So, this was the patch that OWL was played on for that playoffs. And there's a couple of very famous Cinderella there's one particular famous Cinderella story of the Washington Justice who, in a extremely controversial move, were allowed to pick up Decay to play Zarya for them. And the beginning of this meta was looking a lot different in the playoffs. There was a lot of Roadhog Zarya compositions and everything like that, and it was a weird tear. And eventually, as the playoffs went on and on and on, the meta sort of shifted into what was considered colloquially as the Tac Shooter meta. So, basically, what that meta is Roadhog, or we're gonna go ahead and look at Shock's POV. Ignore the Symmetra for right now. Roadhog, Sigma, Hanzo, Widowmaker, and Mercy, and then Zen or Ana. As you can see, both teams have a different one. And what this basically played like was that since Roadhog was so beyond oppressive up close that nobody wanted to get near him at all, so the ranged characters took over. Roadhog's got one-shots, the snipers all have one-shots, Zenyatta effectively has a one-shot. I do not know at this time if Sigma had his one-shot combo. I'm not actually sure. But basically, this composition was around avoiding Roadhog. That was it, right? So this was one of the very rare instances where Roadhog actually was played as and mainly by the main tank, because Roadhog was the thing that was actually making all the space and kind of dictated where the other team could play. And a lot of resources were put into denying the Roadhog. That's why the Sigma became way more favorable over the Zarya as people realized how good snipers were into Zarya, because she can't close the distance very well, especially without a speed boost, or anybody else who's going to be eating that damage. Zarya is going to be taking so much, or her team is going to be taking so much. Sigma much more reliably controls angles. He controls snipers from a distance where they don't have to necessarily take a lot of space, but they can still get value out of the shield. And of course, he is probably the best other tank in the game to go into against Roadhog, because he can completely deny hook value. and he can stun him out of his breather and everything like that, right? So that is where kind of the tanks come in. There are a couple of random other tanks that will show up. Not very many, to be honest with you, but there are still a couple. Let's talk about very quickly the very easy DPS line. It was more than likely going to be Widow, Hanzo, or Ashe. Ashe only on the maps where Widow is extremely vulnerable, and it probably was not a good idea to run her. And some Tracer finds her way in there as well, as we'll see later on in the series. But this is pretty simple. It is just snipers, right? Their job is not, especially the Widow, not to look at the Hog or the Sigma. It is to try to find the backline, try to find the Mercy, try to find the Ana, the Zenyatta, or the other sniper, of course, right? Hanzo a little bit more wanted to focus on the tanks because he has really good shield break, and he really has good chunk with storm arrows on Roadhog's HP, which will deny a lot of space from them, right? So that's where this Mercy comes in, because Mercy, I think, is really the key, because if I remember correctly, Mercy is not picked at all, because she can provide damage boost without having to be in danger really that much at all, right? She provides a really good damage boost to Hanzo with storm arrows, and she provides a crucial damage boost to Roadhog, because Hog gets way more consistent when you can damage boost his one-shot, right? And you might be thinking, well, it's a one-shot, you don't need to damage boost it. There are a couple of factors that might mitigate it, and also, if he's able to hook another tank, and he has the damage boost on it, he's actually up in a much better position, because typically, when the Roadhog hooked first, they, like in a Roadhog mirror, if Roadhog hooks first, they kind of lose that duel, because then they're going to get interrupted out of their next action, and it's going to actually put the other Roadhog up on top in terms of damage, and they're probably going to win, because now no hooks are on the table, and they get to use their breather for free, right? You can stun the other Roadhog's breather because you still have your hook, right? So that is kind of a crucial thing with Roadhog. If you can turn the tides with a damage modifier, like Mercy Beam, that is extremely, extremely valuable. Plus, since this is a low healing comp necessary because Roadhog can heal himself, Sigma's very self-sufficient, and of course, snipers just explode. They are in the front lines taking a lot of damage. Then Mercy can be greeted. You can use Mercy a lot because she doesn't have to be getting in there. She is just here for damage boost. And then the other thing here is that there's two different styles that are getting played in this match. Creative, I am pretty sure, plays Ana the entire series, and Violet sticks on the Zen for the majority of it. There's a couple points where he plays BAP for whatever reason, which we'll get into, but Creative is the Ana player. Ana was getting played mostly with the Zarya variant. What Ana provides is, again, another sniper, but she has good CC. She can prevent Roadhog from vaping. She can stop fluxes. She can nade the Roadhog when he's trying to make space, of course. All very, very valuable into this comp. Otherwise, she doesn't do that much. Sleeping a sniper is also not a bad idea to allow your team to actually take space and to find basically a free kill on them, because both Hanzo and Widow are very adept at killing a sleeping target from wherever they may be, because they can get a lot of good vertical mobility and a lot of good cover, I say, high ground. Yeah, basically like that. So that is where the Ana comes in. The Zenyatta is the variant that Shock played the most, and this is basically to, one, it adds another one shot because Zen can hold right click and find one, right? Even as a support, he can find ways to help the Tac Shooter aspect of it. But crucially here is that Zenyatta Orb on Roadhog is the #1 detractor for the Roadhog, because he is going to be taking way much more damage, and if Mercy is on the Hanzo, damage boosting the storm arrows while Zenyatta has the damage boost on the Roadhog, it makes Roadhog's life a living hell. Put into there, of course, the other Roadhog who's trying to pressure them while all of this is happening. And it's going to let the Shock's Roadhog walk a little more. And, of course, when they're walking, Ana is going to be trying to deny that, but it's much easier for Choyobin Sigma to... Actually, I'm going to move my camera so you can see everybody. I just realized that. It is much easier for Choyobin Sigma to deny Ana's value when there is less things to worry about. When the Roadhog is pushed out and he doesn't have to worry about blocking Hook, that's one less thing that Choi has to worry about. It's going to be much easier to deny a sniper or Ana or anything in between, right? That is kind of how this comp plays. It plays slow. It has trouble rotating. I think that is very, very big, and we are going to see a perfect example of that right now. But basically, that is this comp. It was horrific. I hated this meta. It was so unfun. I can't imagine like a less fun type of meta where you are just playing so passive, slow, and then all of a sudden everything, you just explode because, you know, that's just, no, this isn't Overwatch. Overwatch is an arena shooter, but we got into a spot where this is what we had to deal with. Did it make for an interesting grand finals? I think it did. Just thankfully the meta actually shifted from the play-ins and playoffs to the actual like grand finals and the end of the bracket, right? I think the Sigma variant is much more interesting. It's got a lot more layers. I think the Zarya variant was just like, let's take advantage of this chaos right now and, you know, enable the tanks as much as possible. I think people started to realize that that was not the best way to play it, and that is where these are coming from. So what I wanted to show you here is that a very interesting way that that teams would offset on certain maps the weaknesses of rotating, right? Especially against the Ana comp, rotating against the anti-nade really sucks. If you don't know where she's going to be coming from, you have to worry about anti-nade, you have to worry about Hook, all of this stuff. The Sigma Shield cannot block everything. So instead of them trying to just throw themselves into chokes and everything, what they do here is that they actually TP, right? They block it off, and everyone goes and takes their angles, and they wait for Ons to go back and swap to Widow. There he goes. He's here now. Now they can do something, right? Well, Ons has to get closer. I think he's just watching to make sure there's no Widow. But yeah, see? Deny the angles. Super comes inside. He wants to basically put pressure on them without having the pressure put on himself. Remember that they are looking at the Roadhog at all times. He needs to minimize the amount of time that he is under pressure, right? So this is really good. And then Choi, since they're on the high ground, they were able to get that high ground pressure. Choi, the Hanzo with that Mercy boost, right, is now able to pressure out the rest of them. Super finds Marvel. Jester goes really low. Look at him. He's already got that Discord. Permanently applied Discord. Dead. You see that? Roadhog. Look at it. Look at his health bar, right? Dead. I'm gonna watch it one more time. Full health. Full health. 1, 2. Dead. I know this is crazy if you're new to Overwatch 2. You've never seen this before. Overwatch was a much different game back then. Obviously, there's a lot of damage boosts at play. There's a couple other factors. But if you made a mistake, you're dead. Very often. Especially on tank. Tank, it felt the worst, right? Because everybody's going to be looking at you. You're just really easy to hit. So even at any ranks, it was much easier for people to put damage on you and to pressure you than it was for anybody else on your team. Especially like a Roadhog or something who only had like 600. No, was that? I don't even know. Yeah, 600. I'm seeing right there. He had 600 health in Overwatch 1. So that is important to know, right? That is what this team is trying to do. These comps are trying to set up angles on each other, win sniper wars. Sigma can block their snipers to try and win them better. But whoever can surround the team more, apply all of their negative effects on the tanks and whoever, is probably going to win, right? So again, it is a clashing of styles with the Ana and the Zen, but they play decently similar, right? I wanted to start at King's Row because it shows off the comps better. We're going to watch a little bit more of King's Row just because I want to show you something really fun, interesting with this comp. You might have been thinking to yourself, please ignore Super and Choyobin's ball pick. We'll get there. But you may be thinking to yourself, well, isn't D.Va much more, consistent with denying Roadhog value? And I guess that is true. But the problem with D.Va is that she takes a long time. Her boosters are not very fast, right? There's no Juno right now. You're not playing Lucio. So D.Va is going as slow as possible trying to get around the map. And it makes it very easy and very obvious target for Hook, for Rock, for just shooting her mech. She has to waste all of her resources. It gives them a lot of time to counter rotate her, right? And she's going to be getting shot at from all angles, and she's not going to be able to deal because she has to put herself where she needs to be. She's not going to be able to deal with nearly as many threats as Sigma can. Sigma also provides just much more consistent DPS pressure because of that range. He doesn't have to be close to them physically. But that means that Sigma has to look for hook denial, even if they do get hooked, right? So you can actually see Marvel. I think it's Marvel. I actually never knew, to be honest with you. But you can see him deny this hook really well, right? So Super's going to come around the corner. He sees there's 3 people here. He hits the hook because he's Super. And he somehow Fitz survives. I don't know why Super isn't able to finish this off. But you saw immediately Marvel throws the shield, right? And then Marvel can also come in with Sigma hands, especially once that, the hook is gone. And he can try to eat the value, right? He can try to eat it like Defense Matrix, since if he is in range, he can do that. It's typically more for self-sustain, but if he can save a teammate, it's going to be way better. You just saw right there, too. Nano Hog is crazy. Do you remember when I said that getting your damage boost Mercy Beam on the Hog is really good? Damage boost Nano is either defensive only, or it's if Jester hits a hook, and then he's just going to go ahead and nano it to secure the kill. You did see that Fitz didn't die to that Super's hook, but if you have Nano on you as a Roadhog, yeah, you're going to die, right? So the Transcendence comes out, which I didn't even talk about that. Nade is really good against Transcendence because Transcendence is saying, we want to brawl, we want to take it to you. If creative is not dealt with, if the nade is not considered in this interaction, your brawl, your space that you're trying to create is null and void, and everyone is dead, right? Oh, what just happened? Well, anyways, I think you guys got the picture. That is typically how this comp is going to play, how these styles are going to clash into one another. Now, I wanted to go back and look at a couple weirdo variants because there were still weirdo variants, although not nearly as many as I think most metas come out from. So here we're talking about Ashe. We already see both teams are going to be running the Ashe. Why? Widow has terrible sightlines here. She's much more susceptible, and she will very often be in range of being killed by everybody on the team, right? So that's the first important thing to note here. 2, San Francisco Shock are running Ball and Tracer. This is because, again, we on closer range maps, we don't necessarily need all the snipers, and Ball can pretty easily disrupt this. Remember, there's no tank knockback passive, so he can really boop the Sigma in particular away from the backline or whoever he's protecting. That is going to put him in a bad spot trying to help his team and protect them. And then, Ons or Striker or Violet even are able to continue with that, right? To run with it. It's really weird. It's a really weird variant for this meta, but it is just taking advantage of the space that they don't have to create, right? If they had these super long sightlines, there was a lot more pressure on them, they would never be running this. But since they don't have to, there's a lot of nooks and crannies and corridors and everything that Smurf and Super can both get in without taking too much damage, they can greed this comp. And then Striker just has to be really careful about how he sets up and when he strikes, because if he chooses the wrong moment ever, he will instantly die, right? So it's really high risk, high reward. I want to actually like talk about this because the Shock are playing a variant that is definitely way harder, right? There you go. Smurf's already dead. Smurf is the first one dead here, and we'll show you why, right? This is way harder. There's not a lot of sustain. There's not a lot of CC. It is pure damage. Smurf gets slept one time, already dead. Nothing he can do about it. Nothing anyone can do about it because they don't even have a Sigma that could potentially peel. They don't have an immo. Stuff like that, right? This is really, really hard. But if it's executed correctly, it can really mean, like, it can basically be super stifling, right? So yeah, there you go. There's the Sigma out of position. They try to pressure him. Notice how Soul are playing super far back. Now they have both snipers, so they don't want to play super close. But they are just allowing the Roadhog to keep walking up and keep putting more pressure on their backline, potentially making them scarier and scarier and scarier, giving Violet and Ons better sightlines, right? Striker's almost out of pulse, and they're all together in a tiny little room. It makes hitting pulse way easier, right? So this is exactly what San Francisco are looking for, and Soul are trying. Gesture and Marvel are trying to walk forward because they cannot allow the other Roadhog to do this, right? They cannot allow all the space to be taken or they're going to be completely feasted on, right? So there's that Nano. I think this Nano looks pretty bad, but they catch Super. Never mind, I lied. So anyways, I wanted to talk about that because I think that this is a very important variant. They actually do win both of these rounds on control. Now here, I want to talk about something that I actually kind of don't understand, and eventually, if they will swap back, Violet rolls out on the Baptiste here. I think what is going on here is that you can see that Soul have set themselves up on this high ground with a Sigma shield blocking the damage boosted Ashe Mercy, right? Now remember, I don't know if I talked about this. This is actually post Ashe Mercy nerf. So Ashe cannot one-shot, technically. However, if you hit one hip fire, you do. So it's like very quickly that you basically can one-shot. So effectively, she can. So it's still perfectly fine to send the Mercy with the Ashe, right? But yeah, they are all here on the high ground. And Shock are actually going to be playing the backside here. And they're just going to be buying their time until Smurf can try to find an insane boop on the low ground, because then their team, they have a much better brawl. They can just fight them, whoever fell down, fight them, and basically guaranteed kills on them. And so that's why the BAP is here. It's just because you're trying to survive longer, you're sustaining longer. So I think you need BAP's consistent healing for his whole team, in case you get hit by Ashe or stuff like that. You get hit by an anti and you need to heal up. This isn't going fast. This isn't fragile. This needs to survive a little longer. It needs a little bit more bulk on it, right? So I think the adaptation that Soul bring out here is that they put both tanks on the ground so that they're not allowed to walk. However, that just allows Smurf to get on the backline easier. So I think it was a fine idea from them, but the execution did not come with it. I don't think the supports or the backline rotated properly or anything like that. And to be honest with you, this is just kind of conjecture, at least on this point. But you already see by the end of the map here, Violet is off. Even though they have control the entire time, Violet must have gone down early. And since they had the positional advantage, they don't need the BAP anymore. They can just focus on the damage with the Zen, if I had to guess, right? This isn't even just like a swap because they thought it was not working. I think it's just like everything going according to plan. Very, very smart from the Shock here. I think really, really well played. And they are going to win this map. They win the first 2 maps in the series. So here, we're going to Hanamura. And we are going to show you, again, so San Francisco Shock are playing, what's it called? Widow Ashe. No Hanzo. Here, to be honest with you, I don't quite understand why. I think it's because Ashe Dynamite might be better because they know that they're going to be trying to TP in. Getting a giant Dynamite on the TP is probably much more value than trying desperately to break the shield. Just get if you can get the Dynamite, that is so good for the Shock. So if I had to guess, remember it also gets, oh, that's why I have this clip. It also gets damage boosted. I just wanted to show you really silly funny. Remember how I said that Zen could one-shot? There he goes. He catches Prophet here. Where is Prophet? He is stacked with his team, with his Mercy. Look at him. He's like, you know, he's probably behind the Roadhog. He's like really far back, and he's just dead. Violet, the flex support, back when he played flex support. You know, that's crazy. Now, how much does this matter? Because there's something that I haven't shown you guys. Remember that even though we are in a big one-shot meta, we do have a character that can bring people back to life. So when you find a pick super early, sure, you get res out, but it actually isn't as valuable as you might think it is, right? So you have to find it again. It is so weird. This meta is so weird. There you go. You can see Fitz. He just TPs them back in, and they're going to go rotate. They're rotating up here. They're playing as much cover as possible while keeping high ground, trying to prevent those angles from coming out from Soul. Now they're going to go on to standard stuff, and I'm just going to go ahead and move on to my next clip here, which is where things get really interesting. So you can see Shock, again, are on this slower variant, except there is no Roadhog here. Shock are not playing the Roadhog. Why? Because I think they figure it is going to be way too hard to rotate Roadhog into the point against the comp with the nade and the Dynamite, right? So what they have opted to do is not stack at all and go for Wrecking Ball making disruption and a better brawl with the Sigma and the Baptiste to get in that way. They're going to try and do it two-step. They're not trying to skip the choke. They're trying to create a way for them to get through it naturally, right? And I think that Soul assume that they are going to be going for a TP play. So they put all their eggs in making sure they have the Ashe. And crucially here, they have a Pharah trying to concuss and disrupt the TP so that it breaks, or so that some people go through and then they break it and then they completely stop the push. But the Shock are prepared and they have a counter strategy here. I think this is really smart. I think this is really interesting. But again, remember that the Shock are going to have to play slow. They're going to have to play for their setup. You know, Tracer's going to have trouble getting in. Striker's going to have to be really careful. Super is going to have to go get Megas before you can go. They're just going to wait and wait. I think Super might just be pressuring point, but there you go. You see that? Exactly. Choi steps out a little too far. This is what would happen against a Brawl Core, right? That's why this is like, the Pharah is still pretty good into this because they are a little brawlier, right? Choi steps out a little too far. He walks a little past the door, instantly dead, right? Welcome to 2CP. Welcome to Overwatch 1, right? Fight completely lost for his team. Super goes down to creative, and they're just going to have to reset and try it again. Oh, I did not know that Choi pulled out the Diva here. This is probably anti-Pharah. And, you know, she can still brawl decently well. Maybe not as much as Sigma can without a main tank that can do it. But yeah, I believe the Shock are going to get through this. Holy rock. Yep, rock from Marvel. Okay. Moving on. This is going to be map number 5. We are at 2-2 from both teams here. Let's talk again about the... What's it called? This is... Hamster. Who is he? Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball Sigma again. But this time they actually opt for the... Mercy and Zenyatta, no Baptiste here. Why is that? Well, Widow is probably not going to require a lot of resources. Tracer can just take the... basically, what that signals to me here is that they're not playing brawlier and slower. They are playing this like traditional ball comps. They're trying to play this with fast in mind. They are trying to play this with dive, right? They are actually trying to get onto the Ana or the snipers because the map is so short. It is control, of course, so you don't have as much room to work. So it is much easier for these ball comps and the tracer to get in there and disrupt and get these really good dives, right? Because their team is, it's still susceptible. I mean, both teams are susceptible to a dive, of course, but it's a little more susceptible because they don't have ball, they don't have tracer, right? So that is kind of where this is coming from. We are going to see how they go about it here. Soul are going to take the high ground, and again, the Shock are going to try and buy their time with the Sigma, just holding that position, trying to keep them away from his backline, but that burn is gigantic. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, though, because in that time where they push, I believe, and I don't think we can see it, I believe Super makes a move. Super and Striker make a move, and Violet gets a crucial kill on Prophet, who I think just not understand that, like, he just goes way too aggressive. I think he was trying to coach gun away and got stuck on there. But they make a move, they make good trades. Ons finds Fitz as well, because Fitz is probably like, what is going on? That is what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to distract and find a good place for them to hit, right? They're trying to find a good time for the the ball and the tracer, and ideally with Discord Orb from Zen to get in there, right? So that was a really interesting fight plan there. Remember, these comps are not designed around surviving, right? It's a one-shot meta. You're trying to find ways to win the fight overall. You are probably going to trade pretty often. That is just the nature of the beast, right? So if you lean into strategies that, allow you to do that, I think that's a good idea. Now, here we are going to see some Hog Diva, and of course with the BAP. So again, we're playing slower, we're playing more methodical. I think the Diva is just here to take the high ground, at least specifically on this first point, are really crucial to try to contest. Sigma takes a very long time to rotate up to them. Diva can do it really effectively, and it's really close range for her to do. So you don't need to have the Sigma. It is okay that Diva flies a little slower because the distance is not very far, and she can set it up in stages, right? And they're going slow, so they're going to be playing this, the Widow. Now, of course, it's also because they have Ons, and Ons was honestly, like, the single greatest Widow season I've ever seen. Honestly, it might have been the single greatest season of any one player ever. I know he didn't get MVP this season, but what he was doing on this character in 2020 was, like, I have never seen such consistency with a character like this. And just, like, complete game warping power from Ons. It was crazy. So if you can keep Ons on the Widow as much as possible, that is cool. But yeah, it doesn't quite work out for the Shock there. Creative does get a nade off, so Choi is not able to eat that nade. I think on this next one, though, Super gets the better of Jester, and they're just going to keep going. Choi finds Creative, Super just chills, and they go all the way around. And Choi is able to fly out, right? He can go try and put a hit in, and then if it doesn't work, he can just run away, right? And then let me just check. I don't think later in this map. Yeah, see, we go into the Sigma here, where it's much easier to get to the high grounds, contest them. And the shield is much better on these much more open spaces. You can see we have Widow and Hanzo on both sides now, because it is much better to play on that point. And of course, while we are here, we might as well watch the end of the series. Classic, we're playing our Super comps, and then Super is able to get a couple of really good kills, gets the whole hog, pushes them off the point, and that is the 2-peat for the San Francisco Shock. I just want to talk about this meta because I think it was crazy that this happened. Now, I will admit, the Shock were very, very good this season. They were definitely the best for the season, but the Dragon should have won this season. This was the Dragon season, right? This was Fearless coming back and making his return. This was Fleta MVP. I wholeheartly believe that if the meta did not shake up like this to where it actually put, it didn't completely destroy everything, and it didn't put, Ons on his best character, Violet on his best character, Moth. I wouldn't exactly call Mercy his best character, but like, He definitely is one of the best Mercies ever. Choi on one of his best, I mean, Choi is just a beast. Super has a very, very good Roadhog. And Roadhog is a very niche pick. And if you didn't have a Roadhog player, you were kind of screwed, honestly. So, you know, it's basically this meta was kind of a godsend for San Francisco Shock to just kind of win, right? Now, they almost lost to Justice in the playoffs and went in the lower bracket, but this was much better for Shock than I think a majority of teams, especially when they started playing the variant that I think was much, much better than the one with the Ana. I think the Zen is much higher skill, much higher reward. So basically, I think the Dragons got robbed, and this whole season was a complete disaster, but it was the first season I watched, and I thought it was hysterical. It was so weird. You never knew what was going to happen. There were DCs everywhere. There were people getting traded, random metas popping up. I loved 2020. As weird as this season was, this is the season I look back on very fondly because anything could happen. Like, literally anything could happen. We could be sitting on broadcast listening to Brennan's Sideshow not know about Greek mythology for 45 minutes as they fixed a tech issue. It was hysterical. But this meta, however, was hysterical in all the wrong ways. I think this was not fun. I do not think Overwatch is very fun when the one-shots dominate the lobby and every single person in the lobby has a one-shot. Now, this is Overwatch 1 where, you know, one-shots are healthy, right? Or perceived to be healthy because there are things to stop them. But sometimes the meta warps itself into this disastrous concoction, and this can happen. So my PSA to you is that if you think that, you know, basically the TLDR is that 6v6 will not just solve the one-shot problem, right? One-shots aren't going to be healthier in 6v6 because I think it's already been shown to us they can exist and take over the game in 6v6 as well. Even at the highest level of play, like, it's not even like a skill issue here, right? Like, this is everybody doing their very best, playing the best Overwatch possible. It is still something that could always pop up, and it's just frustrating. So regardless, Overwatch 1, Overwatch 2, 5v5, 6v6, we need to take a look at one-shots. We need to be very careful with them. Right now, I think they're in a decent spot, but there are a couple of weird outliers that I don't think should be there. But, you know, that's it. I didn't really mean to have a message or some point for this video. The point is, you should subscribe and like my video or send me a comment. What do you think about this meta? Do you remember it? Were you watching it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What are some of your favorite metas and some that I should check in the future? I'm trying to look at some of the sillier ones, but eventually I would, you know, I'd be totally down to just take a look at some of, like, you know, just like a GOATs or zombie comp or something. I'm not a GOATs expert. I wasn't watching during GOATs, but, you know, anyways, thank you guys so much. I stream live twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, except for this week because I'm having a really weird week. But it does not matter. Twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway. I think I already said that. Also, down below, join my Discord if you wouldn't mind. Send me a replay code. Send me a hot take. Talk general Overwatch with everybody. That would mean the world. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good day.